I do it wrong last time?
No.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Just didn't think. Okay. You're good.
Very exciting my name is and today's invitation is going to be by Tracy, Poets by Mary, Sunshine Showers by David, and at the end, we'll do the Floyd test. And those are
Yeah, it's beautiful, amazing day here, Lord. Thank you for the sunshine. We're actually in person, one Zoom, we can gather together. This is, and we're always
Amen.
And just very grateful, and that's it. I'm just grateful. And I will be going in under the knife under the knife, whatever they're gonna do to me at about 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. All right, if there's nothing else, we say thank you.
So some of you may realize that there's less chairs per table. I just thought, considering all the spike that's going on right now, to try to keep come in person or of course Zoom. I asked the club to put us 4 per table. I hope you don't mind. I know it's different, but I think that's the best thing to do to keep us safe and healthy and being able to keep coming in person for those that want to attend in person. Do we have a guest? So our guest today, we have one guest. I think there's somebody else. Suzanne, you want to introduce your guest?
I have Carol.
It's okay, the mic's working. Go ahead.
Much ado. Today we have Carol McCutcheon, my friend, who is our city councilwoman, District 2. And she's here, it's what, 4 years? I'm sorry, District 4. District 4. But it's been 4 years since she's been here, so I'm glad to have her back. Let's try to get her to keep coming back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
All right. So any guests online?
No.
No. We have our guest speaker. We'll introduce him here in a little bit. Allison wasn't able to join us today, so Susan's going to go over our January birthdays, anniversaries, and anniversaries.
Hey folks, let's see, member birthdays we're celebrating. Happy birthday, Jim Munnell, January 4th. He's up there somewhere. Hi, Jim. Greg Penley, I thought I saw Greg.
Kevin's on there too.
Oh, there's Greg, hi. David Skaglin is sitting right here. And James Patterson, as we all know and love. Anniversaries we're celebrating are Marty Clayton, our Mighty E-newsletter editor, and Hal J. 52 years for Hal J. and his lovely wife Paula. And roadiversaries for January, Margie Connolly, who is also online, hello. Lynn Borker, also online, hello. Ashley Walla Walla and Raleigh Bales Jr. And that's all we have for January.
All right. Before we go to our service chair announcements, if there is any, I do have a Paul Harris presentation I'd like to make. The presentation of Paul Harris Fellow Recognition is the Rotary Foundation's way of expressing its appreciation for substantial contribution to its humanitarian and educational programs. It is named by the Rotary founder, a Chicago lawyer who started our organization with 3 businesses back in 1905. A world of peace and goodwill comes closer in reality as our Rotarian, Darla Fanta, becomes a Paul Harris Fellow. All right, so in order to become a Paul Harris Fellow, there's a contribution level of $1,000, and this goes to the Rotary Foundation Educational and Humanitarian Programs. Is a commitment to peace and a better life for people, and membership of this club. It is because of gifts such as this that Rotary Foundation can carry out an array of programs that achieve beneficial changes in our world, improved living conditions, increased food production, better education, wider availability of treatment, and rehabilitation for the sick and disabled. New channels for the flow of international understanding and a brighter hopes for peace. In becoming a Paul Harris Fellow, Darla joins a remarkable company of people throughout the world. They are recognized for their devotion to the ideal of goodwill, peace, and understanding, the goal of Rotarians the world over, and the one that Darla clearly shares. Darla, it's my pleasure to present you with the Paul Harris certificate and pin, and thanks for everything you do for us. All right, congratulations again, Darla. All right, I do have one other Paul Harris for somebody that's online, so just give me a second to, okay, I guess I'm lying. Next week.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. All right, Rick Smith, do you have anything you want to, Rick is online, do you have anything you want to announce for upcoming social event?
Does he have anything? If so, I'm gonna switch it over.
Okay.
I thought he was.
There he is.
There he is. Looks like he's talking.
I'm gonna mute him. It's not like.
Okay.
Here, 1 second.
February 3rd will be the next social that we have.
Here we go. We can hear you now.
Getting together, actually make sure that we've got something that's I think it's going to be real fun. Okay. I think it's going to be real fun. I'm totally Zoomless at this point. So. Bye.
That's all Rick's got.
Yeah.
Natalie's online.
I got it.
Let's see. I don't think Natalie's online. Organizing, and I'll be sending today. We're going to be doing a community service project on January 30th. We're going to be sorting birthday toys for an organization here in town. I'm just trying to find a location where we could spread out. We sort plastic. If I have not heard from them yet, if you have a facility that we could set up some tables and spread out, let me know as soon as possible so we can include that in the invitation. So that'll be our project for this month.
And Todd, it's Natalie. Can you hear me here?
We are going to be, hopefully, knock on wood, we're going to have an international exchange student next year. I signed the application and we're just waiting on Rotary to finally approve that. So that is in the works. And also the board talked about last night doing an international project grant. So we're trying to vet through that right now. And as soon as I get information on that, I will share that with you. It's a water project in India. And Lynn, do you have anything? Okay, I know she didn't have anything to report last night. All right.
I didn't have anything. No, I don't have anything, Chad. I mean,
Okay.
Todd.
And then I think we're trying to get the sound figured out. All right. Mr. Tallis, do you have something you wanted to say? Thanks.
So I have the pleasure of announcing this month's Rotarian of the Month. Now I'm going to put a little bit of a spin on it. As you might expect, I'm not just going to give you details. But I think what's interesting about this is that this Rotary is not always about best friends. Rotary is not always about, like Mitch and I really don't like each other, but we hang out anyway. But it is about us being focused on a common goal. This month's Rotarian of the Month has been involved in our club for a long time. And quite frankly, he and I have not always seen eye to eye. But that does not take away from his passion and his love and his commitment to our organization and what he does. He's a past president of our club. He's a past Rotarian of the Year of our club. And I think without doubt, his passion over the last many years has been our exchange program and gathering toys for those people that are underprivileged. And he has done it with passion and heart and his very own dry sense of humor. So with that, I know you all know who it is. Let's all recognize this month's Rotarian of the Month, Mr. Scott Finley. Scott?
Can you go on about what you don't see eye to eye?
No.
Come on,
You're leaving them hanging, that's what it is. All right. So Marvin, do you want to, where's Marvin? You want to introduce our guest speaker today? Sure. Thank you.
If there is a signature event in Houston, it is the Greater Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and has been for years. And today we're kicking off this first meeting of the year to talk about the Livestock Show and Rodeo. And we're honored to have a 10-year volunteer and representative to speak to us. Stephen Hunt is a commodities broker when he's not doing community service. He's also a Sugar Land resident, and we're tickled to death that he has offered to speak. And even though it's Zoom, he's trying to look after himself and his family as he should.
Sorry.
So with that,
Sorry.
so with that, Stephen.
All right. Hey, thank you, folks. I am very thrilled to be with you, and I want to make sure, can everybody hear me okay? We're good? Okay, great. I just want to take a moment before I really get started to say thank you to all of you, because I didn't put this in my intro. I'm honored that somebody asked me for an intro, but I was a participant in the Rotary Club's Camp Enterprise program when I was in high school. I grew up in Southeast Texas. I'm from Orange originally, and so I was a guest of the Beaumont Rotary Club. And so I am grateful for that experience. It was a fantastic 3 days. And so thank you very much for that. And so it is an absolute privilege to, in a small way, hopefully repay some of that kindness. So thank you. But as you said, I've been with the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo Speakers Committee for a little over 10 years. And I am, we're a group of outgoing and fun-loving folks who like to get together and talk to folks about the things that we're passionate about. And one of those things, as I mentioned, I had a lot of scholarship opportunities and wonderful opportunities like Camp Enterprise. I'm passionate about the scholarship side of the rodeo, and I think it's a fantastic thing. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of our history. There's a bit of history here today, but I promise you it'll be entertaining. It's not like a history lesson in school. We're going to talk about some of the firsts and how the show kind of evolved a little bit. But we're also going to talk. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the economic impact of the show, and I think that's something that as leaders in the community that you folks have some interest in as well. So let me just go ahead and start. And if you'll forgive me, I'm navigating 3 screens here with Zoom. So let me just see if I got it right. There we go. So we're going to talk today about the rodeo yesterday, today, and tomorrow, the wonderful history of the show, how we started, where we are now, and some of the awesome firsts along the way. And I wanted to start out by, highlighting the mission statement of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And that is that the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo promotes agriculture by hosting an annual family-friendly experience that educates and entertains the public, supports Texas youth, showcases Western heritage, and provides year-round educational support within the community. Now, normally I would ask for audience participation, so that's a little bit of a challenge here, but I'm going to do my best to keep a little bit of a dialogue, even though we're digital today. Does anybody know, for anyone who's been to the rodeo, and if you type it here, I'm going to do my best to try and watch, what our 4 pillars are? Is anybody familiar with the 4 pillars of the show? I'll give you a hint. They are on the ceiling there in the show whenever you come in. I'll give you just a second to kind of gather your thoughts about the 4 pillars of the show, and then I'll put them on the screen here. So the 4 pillars we have: agriculture. That's first and foremost for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. That's one of our 4 pillars: agriculture, education, entertainment, and our Western heritage. Okay. Hopefully some of you folks got those. We keep them on the big banners there in the show whenever you come and watch the cowboys and the cowgirls and the concerts. But that's the 4 pillars that we're dedicated to as a show and as a group of volunteers. So I again, going to have a couple questions for you.
Didn't get it.
Oh, can you hear me? All good? Okay. So I assume most of you have been to this show before. I'm going to give you a couple of numbers here. I know that as a volunteer organization, you can appreciate the complexity. We have 109 different committees and over 34,000 volunteers every year that work with the show. It's an enormous undertaking. And those numbers are impressive, but there's some other impressive numbers I'm going to share with you that I think are a little interesting and fun as well. So last year in the poultry exhibit at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, we had 950 hatchlings hatched, little eggs hatched there. And this one I think is a fun one. How many fried Oreos do you think were purchased and eaten last year at the rodeo? More than 300,000? More than 400,000? No, it's a little bit closer to 4. It's actually 376,000 fried Oreos last year at the last show. Sorry, not the last year, the previous show. And funnel cakes, we sold about 80,000 funnel cakes. So I think that those are all fun, interesting numbers. I'm a fan of the deep fried Oreos myself. So I always kind of throw that one in there. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the history of the show. And I want to highlight something that a lot of people don't understand, that back in the early 1930s, the cattle industry was booming in Houston. But at the time, the primary markets were in the Midwest, in the Chicago area. You know, we've all heard about the cattle drives that would bring the cattle to the railheads and bring them up to the markets. So back in the 1930s, there was a group of 7 businessmen in 1931 that all sat down at a lunch downtown, and they had the discussion that to preserve the cattle industry in Houston, where we were growing, that we should have some sort of a show to help with the demand that's here locally. Why are we putting these cattle on railheads and sending them north to be processed to send them back? We have plenty of population here. Texas is growing as a state. There's no need for us to include Chicago in this business. And so they founded what was called the Houston Fat Stock Show and Livestock Exposition in 1931. And again, with that goal to bring the business here to Houston, to keep it here. And so I think that's, as an economics guy, that's kind of an interesting thing that very similar to you folks here, right? You're having lunch and you're discussing, your community. These 7 gentlemen met and were discussing their community and how to better their community, right? And then in 1932, we had our first show. It was held at the Democratic Convention Hall. That show was a success in that it brought 2,000 attendees to the show. However, financially, excuse me, that show lost $2,800. But like any new endeavor, sometimes it takes a little while to get off the ground. And so thankfully, those folks stuck with it. But some of the interesting things, but even in 1932, we didn't have the official barbecue cook-offs yet, but there was an impromptu free barbecue. People were grilling out there. They were excited. And when you get enough cowboys together, there's going to become a rodeo competition. So there was an impromptu rodeo competition amongst some of the cowboys that were there. The champion steer, do I have any fighting Texas Aggies in the crowd? I probably can hear you whoop right through the mute buttons. But the first championship steer was exhibited by Texas A&M. They're a proud part of our history as well. And that steer sold for $504 in 1932. Now, moving on to 1937, there was a fire in the Democratic Convention Hall. That's where the first show was actually held. And so we used that year as a rebuilding year, a retooling year. And then the president at the time proclaimed that 1938 would be the show to end all shows. And that gave us some time to kind of put some things together and change up our processes a little bit. So in 1938, you have the addition of several firsts, including the first proper rodeo, horse show, and the first downtown parade. Also, the carnival and the midway were added for the first time in 1938. That was also the year of the first souvenir program. So I tell every group I give this speech to, if you happen to find a 1938 souvenir program, give me a call and we'll split the money when we sell it, because that's the first one ever made. And so that one's a very, very popular one, very rare. Now, 1942, we had our first star entertainer. I'm wondering if anybody might know who the first singing entertainer was. We'll give you a second to think about it. But the first entertainer at the show was the singing cowboy himself, Gene Autry. He was our first musical performer. And in 1942, we added the calf scramble program, which is my wife's personal favorite because she loves to watch those kids dive after the cows. But that was added in 1942. And something that I thought was very interesting. Now, in preparing for this speech, I looked up the mission and the vision statement of Rotary International. And one of the things that I think is fascinating about the show, and actually shares some of the core values of the Rotary, is that your vision statement is together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And I always point to, in 1950, how impressive it is to me that the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo had the International Committee starting in 1950. I mean, I think that's a very forward-thinking activity by the show, because if you think of the world in 1950, we had come out of World War II. We were about to get into the throes of the Korean conflict, and so to have an international focus back in 1950 was really, really forward thinking. And if you look at what the committee does now, and I heard you mention that you're going to hopefully have a foreign exchange student next year involved with your program, this would be a fantastic way to experience the show with them, because there's translators available for people who visit if their family wanted to come visit during rodeo or something like that. And this past show in 2019, they hosted 2,600 guests from 75 different countries. But again, I think that just shows how forward-thinking the rodeo is and how they want to be inclusive of some of our partners across the seas. And we have cowboys and cowgirls from all over the world who participate in the show. In 1952, we had the first trail ride. Now, this is the most famous of the trail rides, the first one. Give you a minute to kind of guess and see if you might know who that first trail ride is, or which that first trail ride was. There's a steakhouse named after it. It's the Saltgrass Trail Ride. And that started with 4 men riding down from Brenham. And it was actually a publicity stunt from the mayor of Brenham. And he sent these 4 folks to go on this ride. And then the next year, there were 80 people who went on the ride. And then now you come to where we are now, and we have 3,000 riders participate in the multiple trail rides every year. So it's one of the signature traditions of the rodeo. It's kind of a neat little way to welcome in the show every year. And so that's kind of a neat little piece of history there. In 1957, we had our first major educational scholarship. Now, you kind of think about 1957, and it was for the scholarship was for Dr. Ben Dickerson, who's from Bel Air, and he actually is a volunteer with the show still to this day. But he was given a scholarship in the amount of $2,000. That's $500 a year for 4 years. How times have changed if you've sent someone to college recently or are planning to. But that was enough to cover the entire education for Dr. Dickerson in college. And so, that was that first scholarship. Now, in 1961, we changed our name from to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo from the Fat Stock Show, just to kind of keep up with the times a little bit. And then in 1965, we added the school art program, which is one of my favorites. My wife's an art teacher, so we always check out all the cool art that the high school and the junior high and elementary kids do there in the Reliant Arena there, Reliant Hall. In 1966, our venue changed. Now, does anybody know what significant venue change we had as a city, as the Houston area in 1966? The 8th wonder of the world, the Houston Astrodome, is where we started to hold our show in 1966. So that was a very significant year for us. And we introduced our bow-legged H, which you can see down here at the bottom of my presentation here. Our little bow-legged H logo was created in 1966. And that's also significant when we moved to the Dome because our attendance for one performance topped 40,000 people, which if you're comparing it to the original Coliseum where we first had the show, that's 5 times the number of people that the Coliseum could hold. Now, another little piece of trivia here, 1970, we set an all-time attendance record. Now, I'm going to let you guess on this one. Who do you think set the attendance record in 1970 with their blue suede shoes? Elvis Presley. The king himself came and played the rodeo in 1970, had 43,614 folks come to the Astrodome to see him, and set an all-time attendance record. We also set a record with our annual commitment that year in the amount of $100,000 to various Texas colleges in supportive research studies. So that was a significant year for us as well. In 1974, we held the first official World Championship barbecue contest, which is one of my personal favorites, is the barbecue cook-off every year. But that started in 1974. 1975, we added the 6,000-seat Astro Arena for some of the secondary and the horse show activities. In 1980, we expanded the Astro Hall so that we had a little bit more convention space and meeting room space. 1986, the very famous state-of-the-art at the time rotating stage was introduced. And that was actually also the 54th show and the year of the Texas sesquicentennial, the 150th birthday of the state. Sorry. And the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo was one of the few associations to be marked as an official organization for that year. In 1989, the show expanded the scholarship program to include the greater Houston metropolitan area. Before that time, it was just Houston scholarships. And actually, another little interesting fact, in 1990, we had 2 rodeos. It's one of the, I mean, we're going to have 2 this year, technically. But in 1990, Houston hosted the Economic Summit of Industrialized Nations in Houston. And so at special request and for the show, to hold a rodeo for some of the dignitaries that attended, they had a show in July in addition to the show that they hold in March. So they had a little mini show in July, and one of the most notable people who attended was the British Prime Minister at the time, Margaret Thatcher. So we actually decided that even though it was hot in July, we were going to brave the heat to entertain Margaret Thatcher. In 1991, we expanded the Astro Arena even more, added another 5 acres for committee volunteer space and things like that. In 1996, it was the 30th anniversary of the Astrodome, and Rodeo Houston became the official trademarked name of the Houston Rodeo. And also, we set another record. I was hunting at a buddy's ranch in South Texas, and there's a sign on the door to my buddy's cabin that says, "Unless you're God or someone, take your boots off, George Strait." George Strait is the one who set that record. I had to explain that to my son when he read the sign. But George Strait set the record with 62,936 people at the turnstiles there in 1996. Now, another fan favorite debuted in 97, which is the Ag Venture. Speaking of my kids, they are huge fans of this. If you have never taken, if you have a little one in your life, grandchild, child, niece, nephew, whatever, the Ag Venture is a fantastic program. It's outdoors, hands-on, lets kids get exposed to a little bit of the agriculture side of the rodeo, and my boys insist we go every single year. It's a lot of fun. When you come out of the exhibits, it's over on your far left, and you can't miss it. It's all the kids stuff, and it's kind of near the carnival there. But that's still a family favorite today, and I'm glad we added that one because we spend at least 2 days there every year. 1999, that's when there was some changes to Houston. We had an NFL team that was working to come to Houston, and the show became involved with that effort to build a rodeo arena and a football stadium. And in 2000, we had the NFL stadium groundbreaking, and in 2002, We did our final show at the Astrodome. And of course, George Strait was there to close us out at the Astrodome. And then we moved to, the Texans had their first preseason game there to warm it up in 2002. And then we moved over to Reliant and Reliant Center for our show. 2004, one of my wife's favorite events was added. The Houston Rodeo Uncorked International Wine Competition. We added that in 2004 and added the wine garden there. 2008, we hit $1 million for FFA and 4-H scholarship recipients. And I think this is kind of neat. The Rodeo Houston group rang the closing bell for the New York Stock Exchange on March 13th. And that was true rodeo style. We did it proper. We had a bucking bull and a cowboy, and we had some show volunteers ringing cowbells there on the New York Stock Exchange, if you can believe it. So that was kind of neat. And then in 2010, we added the Cinch Rodeo Houston Super Shootout, which was an opportunity for folks to win even more prize money and have a couple more nights of rodeo. 2012, the scholarships increased to $18,000 over 4 years. And then in 2017, we upped that to $20,000, which is, like I said, far cry from where we started at $2,000. 2018, we affectionately call the Year of Garth. That was the year that Garth Brooks opened and closed the show for us. And that was his first performance after 25 years being away from the rodeo, from the show. In 2019, we became an official PRCA rodeo and official PRCA NFR money event, which means that the money that the cowboys and cowgirls win can count toward their standings, their final rodeo standings. We're now part of that. So that's a little bit of our history. Want to talk a little bit about our commitments and just kind of what we do and our overall. Some of these numbers are super impressive. I think if you look at the $500 million in educational commitments since 1932 that the show has done, we have 2,400 current scholarship recipients every year. We have about 800 more. Those students attend 74 different Texas colleges and universities. We have another 800 scholarships that are going to be awarded this year. We've done, and they're $20,000 scholarships. And actually something that most folks don't realize, there's a performance incentive within that scholarship. So that, and I'm not familiar with the exact details because my kids are only 7 and 9, but I will become interested in that very soon. But for students who perform above, I want to say it's a 3.5 grade point average, their junior and their senior year, their scholarship amount actually increases because we want to reward those students who are doing a good job, right? I mean, we want to reward performance and good hard work. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the scholarship. There's a lot of cool things about the rodeo and a lot of cool things about the scholarship, but that to me is one of the neat ones, that you reward good performance. Not only with a $20,000 scholarship, but you're rewarded even more when the kids are doing what they're supposed to do. And that to me is awesome. But also I know that, we're economics folks, I think all of us, and business owners. And so where the rubber meets the road is the economic impact of the show. And this to me is why I think this speech is kind of cool and fun. And that's why I like to give this one. If you look, so in 2010, the economics department, one of the professors there, I believe it was Dr. Barton Smith, did a study on the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo in 2010. Now, we don't have updated numbers. I know that this data is a little bit old, but, just bear with me because I think the numbers are even more impressive when you look at the fact that they're 10 years old. So he went through and used an REMI, Regional Economics Modeling module, to analyze the spending, the revenue, and all the things that happened to the Houston area because of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And you can see here that the aggregate sales, they say, increase by $475 million per year because of the show, because of the 2 million people that come to the city of Houston and participate in the show every year. The fiscal tax revenues go up $27 million annually. Jobs, the equivalent of 7,200 full-time jobs are created. Personal income across the greater Metroplex is increased by $290 million. The annual gross regional product increases significantly. The local population, I guess the draw of the show, and people get here and realize what a great area Houston and the surrounding community is, increases an estimated 16,000 people every year. And, you know, the comment that when you, and I've read through some of the study here, but the thing that I think is really fascinating is what Dr. Barton Smith says. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to read a real brief snippet. He says, oftentimes promotional efforts to bring growth to the Houston area are to help beef up the fiscal health of the community. Once again, the rodeo comes to the plate swinging a grand slam. It's doubtful that there has ever been any relocation to Houston in recent memory that has netted local governments in the region over $27 million annually. So I think that that is super, super cool. I'm very proud to be a part of the rodeo because of the impact we have on the students' lives and also on the greater Houston area. So let's talk a little bit. We've talked about the past. We've talked about where we were, what we've done. Let's talk about the future of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Okay. Obviously, this year looks very different. I'm talking to you all on my computer from my house, and you all are home as well, so that we know the world looks a little different this year. But we're going to have the concerts, the rodeo, the carnival, and other attractions, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, May 4th through the 23rd. We're also going to have the Junior Livestock and Horse Show for the youth, March 2nd through the 21st. But the question I want to ask today of you is, what is your future relationship with the rodeo? You know, are you interested in becoming a volunteer on one of our 109 committees? I guarantee if you're interested, there's a place for you. Do you want to be a sponsor for the calf scramble? Do you want to get to know one of these kids, that phenomenal young students who are going to raise this calf and come show it the next year? Or do you just want to show up and help us eat 376,000 deep fried Oreos? I mean, I'm willing to talk to people, but I'll also go up for the Oreos, you know? But that's the question to you. If you have that kind of an interest, I would be happy to kind of help you out in any way that you're interested. And I do see some questions here on the chat. And if it's possible, I know that this has been very difficult for us to have a dialogue, and I apologize for that. Thanks for letting me zoom in. But I did want to open the floor up for any questions. If you want to type them, I'll be honest or you know, willing to tell you honestly anything I know. I do have one question here on the chat already, so I will answer that one first. But if someone in the meeting room could kind of help me out if there's any questions there, I would love to have a little bit of a dialogue, because I normally don't talk this much nonstop, because I really do enjoy and value your perspective and your questions. So the first question I have that was typed in from Mr. Todd Breton. I'm sorry, on behalf of Kathy Hinchman, since the Mardi Gras 2021 has been canceled, will the barbecue cook-off be canceled? I am not 100% sure on the barbecue cook-off. That is, the last announcement I saw was December the 8th, and I'm actually going to get on to the rodeo website right now. I took a look at it last night, and I did not see anything about the cook-off yet. So as of right now, and that's why I was very careful to type out exactly what they said from the December 8th announcement, that's what they said would be occurring. As far as the cook-off, I do not see any notes about the cook-off. So, is that, sorry, I know that's not a complete answer, and I apologize, but I can only, they don't give us anything that they don't give you folks in that aspect. So that's, the last update was December 8th, and it did not mention the cook-off. I cannot hear Robert Walters.
Go for it, Robert. Not, sorry, did this one too? Yep.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Try again. Nope.
Nope.
Tell me your question, I'll type it in.
Thank you.
What is the real market
So that's a good question. The animal events will be indoors because you remember the youth, the junior livestock and horse show, that's going to be held March 2nd through the 21st, which is typical time for the rodeo. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with that, but that's actually the event that happens inside the Reliant arena in the Reliant Hall, where the high school kids will come and they'll show their animals. The May 4th through May 23rd event is the actual proper rodeo. That's where you have the bulls and the broncs and all that stuff. And that's inside Reliant Stadium. So that's air conditioned. So that shouldn't be that bad. Did that answer the question? I'm sorry we're talking through text and all that stuff, but hopefully that answered the question. If not, I'll be happy to try again.
Anybody else? I'll do my best.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. Thank you.
How come you can hear me? They can hear me, but they can't hear anybody else. Yeah.
I can hear you great.
Okay, that's so crazy because Robert is standing right next to me.
I'm gonna
I can't hear. It sounds like he's three rooms over. I'm sorry.
That okay, he was literally over my shoulder talking into the laptop. He's asking because usually there are 2 to 3 groups of animals
that they use during the bucking.
That they use during the rodeo event, that they cycle around, but they're kept outside the rodeo.
Oh, in the stabling areas.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, that's those animals are more than likely going to be stabled outside in Texas anyway, to be honest with you, even in May. But I would imagine that they're going to accommodate. There's actually an entire committee. There's a veterinary committee that focuses on the health and the well-being of those animals.
You need to be on that committee.
Yeah, no, seriously, that would be great. That would be awesome. But there is a committee of veterinarians. I mean, you don't have to be a person who wants to talk on to a group of folks. They have a marketing committee that handles like the digital marketing. They have a legal committee. They have they have people who sell the wine, of course, wine sales committee. They have ticket sales. They have, I mean, the website. And actually, you know what? If you guys will bear with me, if you don't mind, I'll show you some of the committees on the website if you have the time. I don't want to take your whole time up, but.
No, you're good. Now Robert wants to know what the occupancy of the stable is. Stadium. I'm sorry.
So it's about 72,000 people.
Are they going to allow?
But are they going to allow 72,000 people?
They have not answered that question yet. They have not answered. And I think a lot of that's going to have to do, just like the gentleman said at the beginning of the meeting, it depends a lot on what's going on, right? I mean, you know, yeah. I mean, I honestly don't know. And I think that, you know, we've all kind of learned this is a fluid situation and, you know, we're going to have to play it by ear.
So I'm being asked here if we can get your email and contact information for people. I don't know if you want to put it up in the chat and I'll take a picture of it that I can also send out to everybody.
Yep.
Because several people here are very interested in what you have to say.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, I'm happy to do that and I'll put it on there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to direct traffic for you. I'll be honest with you. I will point you back to, if you're interested in the speakers committee, I can help you more there. Because obviously I've been on the speakers for a little while. But otherwise your best bet is to go to the Rodeo Houston website and go and look at, and fill out an application online. Can you guys see my screen still? How to become a rodeo? Yep. Okay. So you would go online sign in, and then check the available committees. All right. And like I said, if y'all be careful now, I'll talk for the next hour if y'all let me. just saying. But there's 109 committees that you can get on. There's the Ag Mechanics, which is actually a show. This is funny. One of my buddies that I went to high school with, I grew up with, every year he comes in town from the Ag Mechanics show, stays at my house. And if you ever get a chance to go, it's phenomenal. Junior high and high school kids who are in building trades, welding, carpentry, they put together projects for FFA, and they dress up as to the nines, as nice as they can. They stand by their project, and they want to shake your hand and tell you about their project. And I'll tell you what, if you ever worry that the kids are not working hard and doing what they're supposed to do, go to the Ag Mechanics show, let one of these kids crawl up underneath a trailer and show you the welds that he did. You know, I mean, it is fantastic to see. And I go every year. I'm getting goosebumps now talking about it. I go every year because I love, for a 12-year-old kid, and some of them younger, they're tiny. They're as small as my 9-year-old, some of them. And they're like, can I please show you my shearing table that I made? Absolutely, you can. Please, I've never been so interested in a shearing table, and it is fantastic. So that's a great committee to be on, the Ag Education Committee. There's the Area Go Texan, and actually Fort Bend has an Area Go Texan committee. This might be a good one for some of you folks. Because what we do is, now that we have scholarships in some of the metropolitan areas, we have Area Go Texan committees in the outlying counties, okay? And so those committees will actually sponsor scholarships. So like sometimes I'll get, someone has to sacrifice and go up to Washington County and judge barbecue for a day. And every now and then I get to do that. But it's to support those Area Go Texan committees up there that have a barbecue cook-off to raise money for their county's scholarship. So that's, Fort Bend has one. That would be a good one for some of you folks. We've started an Armed Forces Appreciation Committee, which focuses on just loving on those armed forces folks and our veterans. The Asset Distribution Committee, that's more about like not financial assets, but more of the vehicles and the hardware and stuff for the show. Auction assistance, there's the Black Heritage Committee, breeders and greeters, the Calf Scramble. Okay, let's be honest, the Calf Scramble Committee is hard to get on. Let's just be honest, because everybody wants to be out there supporting those kids. And so you're going to probably have to be on a committee for a while before you can get onto that one. Just be honest with you folks.
So I got another question.
Oh yeah, please bring them on.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
But the question is, for the logo, the bow-legged H, were those bow legs modeled after anyone in particular? Please know that I am simply the messenger here.
You know what? I must say, I'm going to have to give you an originality award because I've never had that question. That's a good one. You guys are paying attention. I love it. No, I honestly couldn't tell you, but maybe that's just your stereotypical cowboy who's spent a little too much time in the saddle, I guess. I don't know.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
What? Just a second.
Sure. Come on.
What year? I'm being asked. What year did the Calf Scramble start?
So the Calf Scramble started in 1950. Let me look at my notes. Sorry, I don't have it all memorized. 1950. I want to say it was 50.
They're taking bets here.
They're taking, there's money on it. Well, who's got the most money? 1942.
1942, Robert, you lose.
Robert, I'll expect, or whoever beat Robert, I'll expect my cut later. But yeah, so, I mean, again, I will talk all day. So rein me in when I'm done. The Carnival Ticket Sales Committee, the half price carnival packs. Again, I don't know if you're familiar with those, but if you have a little one in your life or you're a kid at heart and you want to go to the carnival, that's the best deal on carnival tickets. Before the show, you get 50% off if you buy them. So you buy, my wife and I always buy them, and you know what? It's probably the best money maker in the world for the show, because I guarantee you we still have those things sitting around somewhere. But at 50% off, it's worth it, especially with, I've got 2 boys, right? So there's a corporate development organization, the Corral Club, which is actually a club for members of the show. It's kind of like a private little nightclub. Let's see, directions and assistance. That's the folks who kind of, if you get lost or you're looking for something, they've got the teal vests there at the show, and they hand you the maps when you walk in. They help you out with all that kind of stuff. Let's see, what are some other?
I actually have a question.
Absolutely, bring it on.
Is there a committee that is that nobody wants to be on? What's the hardest committee to fill?
So you know what? I don't know if there is an official hardest committee to be on, but my cousin is on the recycling committee. Let me make sure. Let me see if that's the right one. Yes. So they handle all the recycling, but what that really means is they take care of all the trash.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's actually people in our committee who give speeches just on the recycling efforts of the show and the amount of trash that is generated and how that's handled. But my cousin, luckily she's been on the committee long enough that she's a supervisor now. So she just gets to drive around in a golf cart and make sure that things are going well. But I would say that's probably a tough one. And then actually we were, if you look here, we were on one that I also think is a tough one. The gatekeepers. The gatekeepers committee is so when you go to the show and there's like those crosswalks where people like will flag and stop you from walking. That's the gatekeepers. And if you get stationed outside and it's 10 degrees and raining, guess what? They give you a plastic cover for your hat and a nice vest, and they send you out to go in the 10-degree weather. But that's a good one too, because you can actually get into some cool places where you might be behind the scenes and stuff. But
I've got another one. I'm being asked, what is the highest price ever paid for a steer? Or steer,
Ooh.
Yes.
So we topped $1 million. This was it last year? We always set a record every year. Let's see, it was, I want to say it was $1.1 million. But let me see. I want to see a number in my hand here before you quote me on it for posterity's sake. Where is my numbers? It was definitely over $1 million this last time. Last time around.
Thank you so much. We're going to have to wrap it up there.
No problem. Did I send you my email? I did not, did I?
Nope. Oh, Todd's got it.
Okay.
So we're good.
Yeah, and like I said, please don't be offended if I have to just direct you to someone else. I'm not trying to be rude. I just, I'll tell you anything I know, and but sometimes the best thing I can tell you is to go talk to somebody smarter than me. But folks, thank you so much for the time. Thanks for being patient and listening to me over Zoom here. And I do sincerely hope to see you in May. And please reach out if there's anything I can ever do for you folks. And hopefully I'll see you around the neighborhood here as soon as we can be out and about again.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Is it the truth?
Number 2.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number 3.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Number 4.
Will it be beneficial for all concerned?
The notorious Sugarland 5th.
Will it do any good?
Yes. Everybody.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you next week.
Thank y'all again.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. That was good. That was good.
I thought, yes, you'd be perfect at that. Phew.
She has it on there.
Hi, sweetheart.
I need the address from this guy.
He's gone, but I can give you his email address.
Yep. Please.
I don't know. Robert. Get that on.
I just texted it to you.
Okay.
It's at the bottom, that where it says so hunt, SCWhunt@gmail.com. That's him.
Okay.
All righty?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, darling.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Ooh. Thank you so much, David. Help. Click it. Click. Leave. So then how does it record it?